you ready?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Weeaboo Club, week 45. Oh, my goodness.
Yep, 45.
Let's go. Fucking, I don't know.
Gotta look up what 45 is. Come on.
45th President of the United States is Donald Trump. I'm getting stuff for 45 handguns, and there's apparently a song by Shinedown called 45 that I don't even know who Shinedown is. So.
Okay.
That's all I see for this one. I don't fucking know. Yeah, but look, I hate y'all. I hate the viewers of this fucking shitty podcast. Y'all are something else. Y'all are terrible. How in the world is it, okay, that, like, we have a topic that, like, Nun and I see, and we're both like, this is a dog shit topic. There is nothing interesting to say on this that hasn't already been said. Why would anyone even click on this topic? That's how fucking boring and obvious it is. And then it just does better than, like, the last few episodes have done by a lot. Hello?
The level of views it has right now is EWB level for the Weeb Club.
Yeah, and, like, hello? Were you guys really sitting there and you saw the upload and you're like, oh, I really need to hear what they said about that? What?
Hey, maybe somebody got Alzheimer's and thought, oh shit, a new EWB, let me click and recommend this shit. I don't know. I have no idea why that did so well.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to get into comments, I guess?
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what's wrong with you guys, why you all clicked on the video, but you all deserve, like, I don't know, hanging or something.
At least a little spanking. Been a little bad over there. You can pick out the first comment.
Oh, yeah. So I opened the video today to pull up comments. And the first comment I saw I thought was funny, which is, Vindy's becoming more and more toxic the less members are in the Weeb Club, and it shows. Now he's Vindying episodes instead of just backlog entries. This is the work of a snake in rat's clothing. I will admit I was checked out last week, so I was a little cringe last episode. But I would also argue that it is not the first time I've checked out a Weeb Club episodes, and that I think that instead of necessarily me becoming more, first of all, it's funny as fuck. It's a funny as fuck comment, but I think that instead of me saying I'm becoming more toxic, I would just say that the problem is, right, like, I bring the same amount of toxicity to the Weeb Club that I always have. The issue is, this toxicity is so much. Like, it's more concentrated on me now, because when it's just Nun and I'm making up, like, a much higher percentage of the toxicity than I was when we had Crafts, and then definitely when we had right? Like, my toxicity percentage was so much lower, and now it's so much higher. That now I'm the toxic one. It's like, in what world? But, like, that's just that's what the Weeb Club has become, you know? For now, hopefully, fingers crossed, Crafts can come back soon. I have no idea in ETA, but I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later.
I think you're becoming more known for toxicity toward viewers, just a little bit.
Toward viewers, maybe. That might definitely be true.
It was me before when we, like, first started, because I didn't want to, like, read the comments and do all that stuff. But now I do think about them, and I did try to, like, extend the topic a little bit more.
Right, and now you're the one who's like, oh, yeah, let's do, like, the timestamps with spoilers.
Oh, yeah, I nobody even asked for the spoilers thing. I just thought this would be nice.
And I'm sitting here, fuck y'all. Y'all don't deserve that shit. Y'all are whitey. Maybe I am the toxic one. Holy shit. This is my second weekly intervention. Holy fuck.
How the tables have turned.
Oh, funny.
So, I mean, there was a lot of, like, new people who have never commented before, because obviously it did reach out to, like, people who aren't just Weeb subs.
Yeah. A lot of people saying a lot of the things that we talk about normally, right? About, you know, Like, a lot of people just saying the things that I guess we probably didn't do a good enough job explaining. And not, I don't think that they were saying it because we weren't. I think that's just how YouTube comments are a lot of the times. If they agree with you, they're just going to restate what you can say.
Yeah, they want to restate what they mean in their own words, and they like,
Right.
you know, they want to add to the conversation.
So, and that's what a
and it's
lot
good
of
to
the
have
comments
like
are.
new ways of saying the same thing for multiple people.
I do like this one from
Anyway.
Divine. Liked the video.
Thank you, Divine.
Oh, okay. There was another one from Craftsdwarf that was Vindy. If you stream yourself, going to one of the FF14 RP banquet things, you need to wear an IRL bow tie over your shirt, or we aren't friends anymore. Maybe. I mean, I don't have a bow tie, but it would be funny. Look, I was talking to a friend the other day where we were saying that we need to go to one of the nightclubs that we constantly see like advertising in the main area because it looks so funny. Because like you'll be in like one of the main cities and people will type in like the general chat in the area like, oh, at this time in this spot in like the player housing area, there's gonna be like a nightclub that you can come to, and like it just sounds so ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like a cat boy, cat girl nightclub. So I might stream it if we ever go to that, but
Unfortunate. I wanted to address the legendary Killer69 in his comment. Anyone who's new, this is the most legendary person who's even semi-associated with the Weeb Club, I guess. Powerful man.
Killer definitely has more lore than any Weeb Club member, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of Killer lore. You guys had to research that.
It's true.
But essentially he was talking about how Masked Man made a claim that like seinen stories can go into more mature themes and have more freedom, since if they can go further in their content, that would imply there's more range for their stories. And like on a surface level, that's like kind of true, because yeah, seinen can be something like K-On! Where it's like light and fluffy, and then it can also be like Berserk or Elfen Lied or whatever. But at the same time, I still don't even think that matters, because if I wanted to write something like Naruto or whatever, I can just apply I can apply to get into a shonen magazine because I already know what my series is. So it doesn't really matter that I can't do like super, super mature stuff, because I already knew this is what I wanted to go for. And with seinen, there is that flexibility for sure, but I still don't think it matters in terms of like how good the story ends up, because you can apply for multiple different magazines.
Right.
And then like he also did bring up like, you know, Chainsaw Man, Attack on Titan, there's Devilman. So like I don't like it is true, like the freedom thing is like kind of true, but like at the end of the day I don't think it actually matters in like a substantial way. I don't know. That's just kind of like my opinion on it. I haven't listened to the Masked Man video or whatever, but like just the idea of that, it doesn't really. It's kind of like
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, you know, obviously being able to maybe delve deeper into more mature topics. First of all, right, there's the argument that, you know, what we consider a mature topic changes based on area, right? I mean, we've talked about this a lot with sexuality and the differences between that and, you know, how we view sexuality here and how sexuality is viewed in other cultures, right? And obviously then that plays into a big role with, you know, with anime and manga, right? And so something like Yuna and the Haunted Hot Springs, right, for example, is allowed to exist in the seinen magazine, where it gets brought over by Seven Seas, right? They like you know, same with like Ayakashi Triangle, right? Like Viz just actually won't bring it over, right?
Yeah, the Ayakashi Triangle
and like it's so just Viz not bringing it over because to them it doesn't fit with what they're trying to fit in as Shonen Jump, but you know, in a world with changed values, right? That does, right? Another example of something that I think like just like realistically wouldn't get censored here, and wouldn't even get censored here in terms of like, okay, not only would like it be allowed in children's stuff, it wouldn't get like censored by the government. Is like in JoJo's, right? Like everyone knows about the JoJo's anime, right? Jotaro smoking is censored because he's a minor, right? And we have TV shows everywhere of like, you know, where we'll show like high school kids doing drugs and stuff, so it's not like it wouldn't get censored. But then also, you know, maybe you would have a kids show where you would maybe have an episode where kids are smoking, and you know what I mean. And obviously there's a difference between like a kids show where like, you know, it would just be like a very, you know, boilerplate smoking is bad message, and like something like, you know, what you know, the discussion around like guitar smoking, what that means, you know what I mean, like culturally and contextually. But obviously, like, you know, that's just an example of like two things where what one like culture considers mature, another one doesn't, and vice versa. And so I think that it's very hard to just say that like for sure, like, oh yeah, well seinen can go harder because like, okay, well they can go harder into what? Is it something that maybe a shonen could have done and they just didn't want to do? And then, you know, obviously that doesn't matter towards quality. Then there's also obviously saying that like, you know, well, stories can be made, stories, you know, like I think you touched on, like stories are made for their audience, right? So something that's in a shonen manga is probably designed to be in a shonen manga, and probably like, I don't think Kishimoto was ever making Naruto and was like, you know what, I really want to explore what happens to female war prisoners, and like, you know, the like whatever, like the sexual abuse that like they would face, right? Because that's not the story he's trying to tell. And so like, yeah, you could say like, well, you could put that in Naruto and it would do more to say, well, war is bad if you could talk about this in it. Sure, but like if Kishimoto wanted to make that a core theme of his manga, he wouldn't have put it in a shonen magazine, right? So I think it's just like it's kind of weird to say, because like by saying that you're implying that the person that the when the mangaka is going around to shop their manga, they don't know its demographic. And sure, then there's the argument, well, if they're trying to get in as many magazines as possible, they're probably just sending the whatever the manuscript to as many magazines. But like, you know, they still know what when they're starting the series, what the demographic is. So I don't think it's fair to say, oh, well, this demographic harms the series, because if that's true, first of all, either they might have asked to switch magazines, which is something that happens all the time, right? Things go from seinen to shonen, or, you know, JoJo's did it. It was in a show. It was in Jump for the start of part 7. Was in Weekly Shonen Jump, and then it jumped to JoJo's now is in Shueisha's monthly magazine, right? Monthly seinen magazine. And so, you know, that can happen. So I don't think it's fair to say something like that, because it's like, if our author wanted that and their series was successful enough, like most of the series that we talk about in Western discussions are pretty successful, right? Even stuff that like we talk about that doesn't get, you know, and that's what we talked about with seinen, right? Even stuff that we talk about that doesn't have like official localizations is still very popular, and you know what I mean? So a lot of times, like with those series, they could switch magazines if they needed to. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't like that argument. I think it's dumb.
Yeah, to add on to that like a little bit more, is just like people forget just how many magazines there are. So like, even if you failed to get into this one seinen magazine, you don't necessarily have to settle for like a shonen one and then be like limited in your content. Like there's just too many magazines to like truly fail, unless you would fail in like most of them or all of them, really. I don't know. It's whatever.
And there's online, there's self doing it, even if it takes longer, if you really feel committed about, you know what I mean? Like there's ways you can do things. So I just, I really don't like that argument.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I really like Raphael Racine's comment, aka Megaraphics. When's the AO rated games are better than M rated games, which themselves are better than T rated games, which are in fact superior to E plus rated games, which surpass E rated games. Weeb Club episode. And I like this comment because it's like, it kind of points out definitely the arbitrarity of something being rated higher meaning it's better, because people don't really say this about games, I would say. And more of the I was just gonna say, and more of the popular games tend to be like T rated, I feel like.
No, an M-rated game is like, normally I mean, maybe when you talk about best games of all time, but
are like the top things that people say are like the best things of all time.
Well, I just mean normally, most years in the best selling, I would imagine there's at least in the top 5, there's 2 or 3 M-rated games almost every year.
Yeah, but like I still feel like more so T-rated games in sheer numbers, in terms of like the most popular games, tend to be like higher. I that's how I personally feel, but I could be wrong.
I disagree. I mean, so like I would just look at like when you look at like major first parties, right? Everything Ubisoft puts out as first party is going to be right? In terms of like most of Sony's exclusives that like people talk about that are noteworthy outside of Spider-Man are what else is there? I mean, obviously Call of Duty, which is like a huge, you know what I mean, is I mean, you know, there are other games obviously that are still widely talked about, but I think the big thing I would say with games is just that like people might feel that when they're like younger and you first start, you know, being able to play games that aren't just right? You kind of go through that, but people don't go through that with anime the same way because, you know what I mean? Like, you're not actually being told like, oh, this is you know, your mom's not saying this is insane and Jump, so you can't read this. Your mom doesn't know what the fuck that is, right? So you never have that like as a kid you realize that like that rebellion of thinking that maybe, oh, like an M-rated, this game's better because it's rated T. Like that's something that a stupid kid would think, right? But like people don't think that way in anime because there's not like that just like moment of, I don't know. Like that moment where like it just feels like people, cuz you know, I remember like when I was like starting middle school, right? Like people were like, "Oh, I don't play kids games, right? Like I play like fucking, you know, grown up games." And it's like, "Okay, well, you're fucking 12, like grow up." Yeah. And then like people do grow up, right? And then it's like nobody cares what like the rating on a game is, right? And so, you know, I mean, I think, yeah, like you could even look at like really caring about ratings, obviously for like yourself in terms of like quality, right, is a sign of immaturity. Obviously, caring about ratings in certain instances, right? Like if I have a kid, it's not a sign of immaturity to, you know what I mean? But, and I think that I like that comment as well because I think it just highlights like how silly it is because, yeah, like people don't say that with games.
I mean, I guess the final comment I wanted to bring up was Master Spoon just posting the Unravel lyrics. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
No. I'm
okay,
good.
Cool. On to the Reddit.
Funny picture.
Yeah, I'm surprised he actually just straight up just drew this. It's kind of funny.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm probably going to save this image.
I'm its biggest fan. I love that it's fight, toxicity, and leave the pod. I love that run is leave the podcast.
Yeah.
And then instead of like a Pokeball, it's toxicity. So what, like instead of trying to capture me by putting me in a ball, you would just be toxic and that's how you get me to stay? I don't know, but it's funny. I liked the image. Yeah. Silly.
So, I mean, our topic for today is essentially just, does an ending ruin a story? If you think something ended badly, does it just taint the whole entire thing, or does it not? How much does the ending matter, etc.?
Okay. Interesting. I'm just gonna ask right off, like just off the bat, is there anything specifically recently that's been making you think about this a lot? Any series? Because I mean, you know, that's just something that I feel like people are always saying, right? Oh, it falls off after this point. Is there anything recently with you really that's got you thinking about it? Or
so are you asking if like there's something that's ended badly for me that I've been thinking about, or is there just
one that people have been talking about, or specifically? Okay, so it is just AOT based. Okay. I see. I was pretty sure it was, but I didn't want to say because I wasn't for sure. But yeah, that makes sense. People are fucking dog shit stupid. I haven't finished it, but like, I don't know. I refuse to believe it's that bad, considering AOT's not that good. So.
Whoa, what the fuck?
It's like an 8, so the ending's probably like an 8. Like, what do you want from me?
But yeah, I mean, I think what always bothers me about the ending and like all the moaning that happens when something ends, happened with Beastars, happened with Promised Neverland, happens with a lot of stuff to the point where people like to say it's rare for an anime to have like a good ending or whatever. What grinds my gears more so about them thinking it's bad isn't even just that they think it's bad when like it's good. It's more so just like how quickly people turn their back on a series and just like completely disregard it and talk down to it like mad heavy, even though like they were hyping it up for weeks upon weeks when they were enjoying it, and to like just forget all those like positive feelings and all this good that the series did and how well the author kept it up for so long, it just feels wrong to me.
I don't know if you ever feel like this, but I swear to God, it feels to me like people will just sit around waiting for a series to drop off.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean that in like I don't mean that I think in the way that people might think, where they think of like some conniving person sitting there like, oh, I'm reading MHA and I can't wait for the second it starts to get bad. Right. But I think it's more in just like the way where like, and you know what? I'll do the thing that viewers don't like. Fuck y'all. Okay, I am being way too toxic to the viewers. Where I in quotes psychoanalyze someone, but like I do think like part of it can stem from. I think that there is like
you do that.
Well, no, but it's because like I think like if you can find the root, especially like in our, because like you know a lot of times what I'm trying to do is like look at like what is it potentially in like our view, in our societal viewpoint, right? Because like when we talk about a lot of these things, a lot of them I think are societal, and I think a lot. So there's like two kinds of issues in terms of like when we talk about media and the way people consume art, that I think like you can like bury them down to, right? One is just a overall societal issue, which is like an issue with I think the way that people that engage in modern culture just like baseline view media, I guess, if that makes sense. And then the other one is something that is, I think, like directly intrinsically linked to a misunderstanding that the art we're experiencing comes from another culture, which is specifically anime related. This one I don't think is anime related. I actually think this is something people say a lot, and I think it comes from a lot of TV shows and like a lot of sitcoms where they are just meant to kind of go until they fall off and they get canceled, right? Because the syndication method for something like that, right, is we're going to have 20 seasons of this show because it is making us money, and that's what we're going to do, right? And so I think people are used to things getting bad at a point because, you know, that's what happens to so many TV shows, and it's such just like a large part of conversation with that, right? I mean, like, you know, when you look at like the most popular shows, right, it's like, okay, well, The Office has, you know, like when Michael leaves, you know what I mean? And I mean, even the phrase jumping the shark, which is like the typical phrase used, comes from, you know, Western sitcoms, right? It comes from Happy Days. Which, do you think I should explain? You know that, right?
I mean, I know what jumping the shark means, but I don't know like the specific origin of it.
Well, I guess I'll explain it. So there was a sitcom in the 70s that takes place in the 50s called Happy Days, and a character like the Fonz. So if you ever seen like like the almost like the stereotypical greaser, like the Fonz was kind of like that, and like it was good, and people liked Happy Days. And then there was like an episode or something where like he like jumped a shark on like a jet ski, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is the peak of the show. It doesn't get any better than this." And then because that was like seen as like that was like the peak of the show, and then for whatever reasons I don't actually know, like the show I guess fell off, and so that's what jumping the shark became, right? Because Happy Days jumped the shark, where it jumped the shark and then it got bad. So jumping the shark is seen as like, okay, well, you jump the shark if you know, essentially like just were good and then stop being good, right? You reach your point where you jump the shark where you peaked. And I think people kind of expect a lot of media to do that because that's something that I think, you know, I think it's expected with TV shows. People expect their shows they're watching to jump the shark because, like, you know, and realistically, the reason for that a lot of the times is just, you know, I mean, people talk about it with The Simpsons, and everyone understands it when you explain it with The Simpsons, but for some reason with other things don't. But it's like, after a while, the talented people working on something, their creative, like, energy is going to be gone, and they're either working there without creative energy, or the original creators are just going to leave. Right? That's what happened with The Simpsons. A lot of the original writers left. The show is not being made by the same staff anymore. So it's almost not even the same show at that point, right? So of course people who liked what it was with a certain group of writers aren't going to connect with what it became, right? And so, you know, I that's just like the origin of that. But I do think that like some of it might come root just from like, that's what people expect from like TV shows. And so I think people like kind of look at everything through that, where they expect series or something that's going on for a long time. Do you just like, not like they expect it and they're waiting for it, but just like I think people think eventually this is going to get bad. And it's like, it doesn't have to eventually get bad. It could be good the whole time. Or it could be fine.
Yeah.
And it could end okay. I don't know.
I also think when it comes down to like certain series, people get too wrapped up in the idea of how they think it should end and what they foresee coming. And then when it doesn't do that, they just assume it has to be bad. Like, even if, like, something can be not to your preference and, like, be like, I didn't really enjoy that. but like you don't have to be like, oh, this is bad, like this is just doesn't make any sense, or like I feel like people don't search for how that, like,
right.
how could this make sense, how could this like actually have been foreshadowed or like make sense with the story. Like you should weigh multiple different options of how something could have came to be before making your judgment on it. And I think people don't like to do that, and it's a really bad way of thinking, because at that point you're just like closing yourself off to coming to appreciate it more. Like there's plenty of series that I've experienced that like maybe the initial reaction to the ending was like, I don't know about this, and then I thought about it more and it grew on me. Maybe it didn't reach like this peak it could have if it ended in the way I thought it was, I guess, but like I still ended up appreciating it, and it's memorable to me, and I still like it. Like, I think with Rave Master, that's one example of something I read where I was like, the ending is like, I don't really think it matches with this, like, thematic idea that, like, nobody gives a fuck if I spoil Rave Master, but essentially, there's this whole thing between the Rare Grooves and the, what the fuck is the other family's name? I don't remember what their other family name is. I'm not going to think about it. And it essentially was doing this thing where one side is fated to take out the other side, and they both can't like coexist. Like one side needs to be wiped out for this fucking thing to work. And that's kind of what ends up happening. Like the villain of the story, his entire family and all that shit gets wiped out, and he dies at the end and stuff. And it's like, and I was thinking like, as the hero, Haru didn't want to do that. And he could have overcome it, and like, shonen stories traditionally do that, but this didn't. And I was like, for a little while, it kind of did like damper my enjoyment, because like I was genuinely thinking Rave was good, and that people were kind of like wrong about it. And then like as I thought about it more, I've come around on it to the extent of which like I still don't really prefer that, at least until I reread it, but I do kind of understand that there is this idea of, I'm pretty sure the antagonist's name is Lucia, like his first name. He was a slave to fate, and he essentially kept thinking it has to be this way, it has to be this way. And then he ended up making it come true because it was a self-fulfilled prophecy, right? Like he could have stopped this if he buckled down and wanted to end it, but he kept going even though Haru didn't want to, and it ended up happening because he was doing something wrong, and he was refusing to change. So the fated thing happened, and that doesn't usually well, at least in my mind, it doesn't usually happen in a shonen story to be that way, but in this one it did. And just because it did, it doesn't make it bad. It's just different. And
so
not
you're
to, like,
saying that Rave Master is a hard shonen, or even a soft seinen by some metrics?
Hell yeah. But yeah, that's one example where I think of like, at first it was kind of like messing up the story for me because I was just so but now like I think fondly on it, and I think a little, I feel a little happy when I think about Rave, and I still enjoy it, and I think people just don't seek this answer for a way for them to enjoy something, and not like they have to make up how they feel and force themselves to feel positively, but people give up too quickly on finding an answer of how something can make sense.
Yeah, exactly. I think a good way to phrase it, right, is and I think that this is something that can happen to people just by going through the media, but I think going through, as long as it isn't something, I mean, a lot of the thing that I think we should say is when you talk about an ending ruins something, very rarely do you hear someone talk about and people are going to say that this is dumb, and there are instances where people will say this, but, I think a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, you don't hear someone say, oh yeah, that YouTube video was really good, but the ending just fucking ruined it. Or, even that movie was really good, but those last 10 minutes, I think, just absolutely ruined it. Unless the last 10 minutes are generally trying to do something maybe a little bit more experimental or a little bit more polarizing. A lot of times, right? Generally, I think when you get the ending complaint, it's something that's longer, right? And a big thing that happens when series are going for a long time, either it's very long, right? And so it's taking a person a long real world time to read through it, right? Most people who read One Piece, that's something you're doing for weeks or months of your life. You are like consuming One Piece to get through it, right?
I mean, years.
No. I mean to catch up. Like, I mean in theory, like if it's over. I obviously like now it's years because it's years till One Piece is done. But I just said like I said One Piece because I think of that as like the long one where like One Piece is going, like I'm just going to say it now, everyone is going to think One Piece is dog shit when it ends. That's what's going to happen. It doesn't matter. Oda can't do anything about it. Y'all are all dog shit stupid. Right? That's just how it works. And so I think that and so obviously I don't mean you as in the Weeb Club viewers, right? Y'all are the fucking 1%, right? But
are they?
I was trying to be nice to them. I've been so toxic, and I realized that sounded way meaner than I meant it to. But like, I think that part of something that when you have it takes a lot of real world time is you think about it a lot, right? And if I'm reading One Piece for real world years, it's not a surprise that I'm going to have my idea for how I think the story should have ended. Or, even if like, I would tell myself, right? And this is something that like I'm thinking back to that I have definitely done in the past where you think, okay, well, even if I remember for a long time when I first read One Piece, like, okay, well, Straw Hat has to die, right? So which Straw Hat's it going to be? And I was like, it doesn't have to happen.
Why did you think that?
Because I was dog shit stupid. I don't fucking know. And so like but like that was like that's the way people think about things, right? Is like they get in their brain this has to happen for the story, right? And so maybe I'd be like, oh well, it'd make a lot of sense if this Straw had died and that scene could be really good because it could tie on these parts of the character, right? And like yeah, but like the story doesn't need to do what I want it to, right? A story can be whatever it wants to be, and I can't force my idea of that story on it. And the problem is obviously, right, that like a story is at its most transparent in the ending because that's when a story just has to be most transparent, right? Like the most transparent point in a story is when the conflict is resolved because that's when, because through that conflict resolution is how it's obvious what a story is going for the whole time. A lot of people who will be reading a story and maybe it's not transparent exactly what like the core idea, like the core conflict is, but then you get to that core conflict and it's, it legitimately can be a situation where, you reach like the center of that like you find out that core of that conflict. It's not what you thought and you didn't see it coming and you just kind of feel blindsided. You don't know what to make of it. And I think it's very easy for someone there instead of let me look back through everything before and try to, put this into context and try to re-examine everything, which a lot of times is why I love to say, when a series that you're reading weekly finish, I do not care how long it is. Okay, when a series that you've been reading for a decent amount of time finishes, go back and reread it. I don't like.
I completely agree.
Not to take anything away from the weekly experience, right? But like, we'll get to it a little bit more in the weekly recap because that's what I'm going to talk about this week is something that I've been rereading. But it's crazy how much different of an experience something will be when you can do it, consume it all at once, and also how much clearer that vision that you have of the story is going to be when it's all done at once. And I know for both of us, I think one that we could talk about is like in very broad terms is Kimetsu, right? Is a series that both of us did not like the ending and thought the ending wasn't super great. And then on a reread, both of us look back at it and like, no, that was really good. We were wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Just knowing what Muzin's deal is. I won't spoil it just in case anime onlys are watching.
But just having a more clear vision of it.
Yeah, it makes him a lot better. I think even the people watching anime now, by the time they finish it, they probably won't be like too big on Muzin. Like they'll probably still be like Akaza people or
everyone will say Akaza is the best villain in the series, and I think they're all wrong. I think that it's clearly Muzin, but
yeah. And like I can see why someone would think that just based on how this series operates right now. But like the context of like Muzin and when he finally ends, he just becomes so much better and you can see it the entire time throughout the story. In a lot of ways and just see his effects and like feel more of his presence. He's cool, he's good.
I agree.
But you just don't get that from the weekly first go around, especially when you're like thinking all these things ahead of time. And I've seen that, like, even in the Arcada video that me and Crafts talk about in EWB, he kind of does that a little bit with Muzin.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead, Vindy.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think, yeah. I think that that's just how people are with it. And, yeah, I think that's it's a great example because, I mean, we have, like, times where you and me were sitting here shitting on it and even like shitting on Baby Muzin, and I will sit here now today
that's just funny as fuck
and
still,
say it's funny, but I will defend it. And you know what I mean? And I think that it's crazy how it's just like, and part of it is just like the weekly experience, right? And like, look, sure, there are some motherfuckers out there who are reading One Piece and have the memory of fucking God himself, all right? And they'll sit there and they'll be like, yeah, there were these like little words in fucking page 16 of chapter 325 that mattered. But like,
I think those people are frauds because I don't think they just remember it that well.
You think they just
I think they're just low-key
everything?
doing research and shit. Yeah, like they're reading everything people are saying. They're watching all these videos. If they're YouTubers, they're probably reading stuff again for their videos. Like they're doing more work than you would do if you're just reading something as a fan, like a casual fan.
Right.
And they're also making theories. Theories are very popular with One Piece, so it requires you
to really know that.
Go back and get all this context and gather these evidence points. So then you would notice like, oh, Usopp said this lie, and then his lie became a truth way later. Like, it's not really a great memory for most of them.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think theories are something where it's very easy to then have that moment where, you'll get these One Piece guys who, their whole thing is like the One Piece theories, right? And I'm not even talking about like YouTubers, right? But I think YouTubers are a large part of this. But like, when you have the people who these theories are your whole thing, right? Theory crafters will have the same few things that they always bring up a bunch. It's like, oh, well, this is unresolved. And I'm sure that some of the stuff that they bring up with is stuff of, oh, well, we have to see this. At least some of it, Oda doesn't give a fuck. Because that is not a part of the story he's trying to tell. So he might have just honestly dropped something in his, like, cool world building. That there are people fucking out there trying to make theories about and trying to make everything make sense together, right? Like, you know what I mean? Especially with a lot of the Joy Boy stuff, I'm sure now people were, you know what I mean? Trying to figure out all these fucking things. It's like, okay, well, now we know it. None of y'all motherfuckers guessed it. And there are going to be people who feel slighted by that, right? Because they feel like that, oh, well, everything made sense for my vision of this. So why is it not this, right? Or how do you not explain this thing that needed to be explained when, like, it might not have needed to be explained. You just thought it did because your version of the story that had to be explained, but according to the creator, it might not be.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any series for you aside from Kimetsu that like you thought had a bad ending?
So there's a few. One I want to go back to. It was an anime I did not like a lot when it was coming out. Flip Flappers, I thought ended terribly. I would like to rewatch it before saying any more, but I don't want to rewatch it right now. And I would be thinking back on what the show is now. I think so much of it is based in like almost genre fiction, with episodes having entire genres dedicated to it. I would bet there's a lot more at play that I just can't understand now. So for like a show like Flip Floppers, I feel like for me to fully like actually want to decide if I feel like that show's ending is terrible, like that's a show that I would be very interested in deep diving into at some point and like looking into like a lot more of like what it's trying to say with its mainly with like its film language in terms of its allusions to different genres. Like there's like a Mad Max episode kind of, and there's like this like haunted house episode, and I bet a lot of those mean things both in the context of the magical girl genre and also in terms of other things. So I don't know, but I remember at the time I thought the ending was really bad, and I remember thinking like, yeah, this ending kind of ruins it for me. And I don't know if it would now. I really don't, because I mean I watched that show as it was fucking coming out weekly and just thought that it ended really anticlimactically, which is I actually think thinking a series is ending is anticlimactic is a very good tell that you're being blinded by your feelings right at the end of finishing it. Not that sometimes series can't end anticlimactic, but I think a lot of times people complaining about an anticlimactic ending, it comes from wanting the series' ending to be more than it was ever going to be, or maybe the creator feels like it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, I do think people probably feel like every story needs a very grand, big, major conclusion when it's not necessarily, but
yeah, or like, you know, if you have like a show like I kept hearing people say like, oh well, the only way, and like in this instance, I think it kind of was true, and I think that's why the series ended there. But like people say like, oh well, Walter White. Okay, well, okay, I'm gonna spoil the end of Breaking Bad. All right, click ahead 15 seconds from when I finish this disclaimer.
I'm gonna not listen to this because I don't want to be spoiled.
No, the show came out in 2008. Grow up, like if you don't expect this to be how the series ends, like
as your discussion point, I'm just not gonna listen to it.
Okay,
taking off my headphones for a little bit.
Okay, people will love to go like, oh, Walter White just had to die at the end of Breaking Bad, and like, sure, okay, he did, yes. But that's how the series was going. Just because you have a similar series doesn't mean that it has to end in a similar way. And it doesn't have to end on this big climactic moment for the character, this big ending, right? Series don't even have to, there are times where, like, people may say a series ending is maybe, like, anticlimactic, and I don't even think that ending has to necessarily be, like you can have a series where it kind of ends and you know, the idea of the ending is just like, especially I think for a TV show, this kind of ending, it can be great and can be like super emotional. Is this idea of like, hey, these characters' lives are still going on. Here's kind of a glimpse into how their lives go from here. Or maybe you don't get that glimpse, right? I think if you look at where Scrubs was supposed to end, it kind of maybe gives you an idea of a glimpse into what the main character's life is going to be for the rest of the series. But it also just like is kind of in his head and is clearly in his head. And you don't know if that's how his life is going to go. But like kind of the point of it is that like the series is done. Like our following of his life and what he needed to grow and learn and in the ways that the character that we're watching, you know, his story in terms of the series is complete, even if the series itself isn't. Or even if like his life or his entire life story isn't, right? The series is complete. Now, obviously, Scrubs had another ending that was actually bad, but I would argue that doesn't ruin it. But I think that's like the second half of the discussion, because right now we're just talking about like, I guess almost like most endings aren't as bad as people like to act like they are.
True.
And yeah, I think in a lot of those cases, I think that like, you know, that's just like what happens. I don't know. Like saying that something is anticlimactic, a lot of times I think if an ending is anticlimactic, okay, someone does not successfully write, you know, I'll get like, you know, 300, 400 chapters of a manga, right? Or 3, 4, 5 seasons of a TV show, right? And not know how to make and have like climactic endings to maybe seasons or arcs, right? And then unintentionally into their series anticlimactically, right? And a show doesn't go on that long and still be popular and put a lot of hoorah into its final season and end anticlimactically because, oh, well, they just had to get it out the door. That was an intentional choice most times, yes. Right?
And I also hate the, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, and people need to, like, think about it, and a lot of times just, like, wait time. Like, literally, a lot of times just waiting and then going back through the series, or even if you don't need to go back through the series, just waiting and reevaluating from a different lens a lot of times. And people just don't like to do that. They just want to go with what their gut emotional reaction is. That's how it's always going to be.
Yeah, I also think with, like, a different lens, I think just changing as a person a little bit before you reread something and, like, I'm going to give this some time and then I'm come back to it, maybe I'll have a different view, is very good. But what I was going to say was essentially people will cope a lot with, like, an ending by just assuming, like, when it's a Jump series that it got canceled. Like, this had to be canceled. There's no way it wasn't canceled because it ended this way. And most of the time, those cancel claims are just, like, actually wrong. Like, even today, I was searching for a Promised Neverland image, and I saw in, like, the suggested, like, other Google things that people ask, did Promised Neverland get canceled? And it's like, no. Like, Promised Neverland is way too popular to get canceled.
Okay. I'll actually give an example of a series that does get canceled very late in. And it is very, two series, I think, where it's very obvious it gets canceled. And I would argue both of them. I do not think that the cancellation or the bad ending ruined the series, but I think in both cases, you can tell from the way it goes that it was clear it got canceled. It was not just like, this ending was kind of dog shit. You know, like if you don't like Promised Neverland's ending, you know, you're wrong, but okay. if you don't like its ending, I can understand like not liking it, but it didn't get canceled. It very much ended how like the series was going, right? If you want to see instances of canceled manga that had time in them and just fucking end, the two best ones I can say are Shokugeki and Baby Steps. Where Shokugeki, I guess.
Oh, you think Shokugeki was canceled?
I think so. I think that it does that thing that a lot of canceled manga do when they're 3 volumes in and they get canceled, where mid-arc it just kind of like wraps everything up in like 2 chapters, and we'll have things that like, especially, and the big thing is both of them are sports series, right? So it's very easy to do this, right? Because in Baby Steps, right, it's still being translated now and still getting scans, but like the canceled like stuff, like we're past the point in scans where it was very clear that the manga was like told you got to wrap it up, because it's like we're in a massive tournament and someone no-showed a match. Like 20, like it's a massive fucking like tournament, okay? Like one of the most important tournaments for the main character thus far in the story. And he has like a really important match coming up. Okay, well he has like one match that's like the best he's played, and it's done in like 5 chapters where it's like he just figures out a mental block and all of a sudden he's a GOAT, right? And it's like, okay, well here's the next match of the tournament. Oh, they no-showed. So that match takes like a chapter, right? And it goes from these things where I know from the setup and from the importance of the opponent and how strong they are in series, you know, you get an idea of from how the writer writes, right? Of how much time a match is going to get. And when it's 2 chapters instead of like a volume at least, it's like, all right, like you're on a fucking crunch here. You know what I mean? And then someone no-shows a fucking match. And all that comes out of it is like, oh, I got lucky. Hello? And it's not like there could be anything done with the manga's ending in 15 chapters. So like that, like it's very clear when it gets canceled. Promised Neverland was not canceled. It ended. There's a huge difference. And I'm not sure about Shokugeki, but I'm pretty sure it's known that Baby Steps was canceled. Like I'm pretty sure that's like been stated before that like the series did just get canned. But either way, I mean, you know, it's crazy. And I mean, obviously there are times where maybe something wasn't canceled, right? I think Bleach is a great example, right? Like Chad in the final arc, right? Arc had to end because Kubo was fucking dying. So the ending was a little scuffed.
Yeah, he said as much.
The ending was a little scuffed. But, okay, so now I guess I'll ask you like the real question of the topic, which is, of any series you can think where maybe the ending is not as good as the rest, or maybe it is like one of those, you know, TV shows that we mentioned, or that like, you know, I talked about with like Western TV shows where a lot of times those actually just do end dog shit, right? A lot of times when they finally cough out their last season, right? Whenever The Simpsons finally decides that it's going to cough out that last season, right? It's going to be at a point where The Simpsons is so bad that nobody is watching it anymore and it's not making money, right? So for that to happen, we have to reach a point where it's literally just not making money anymore, which means it has to reach this level of ungodly terrible, right? So, because like at that point, you have to alienate literally a majority of your fans that have stuck with you for 30 years by just either they die, I guess, or it's just bad, right? So then I guess the question just is like, do you think that a series ending badly can ruin it? Yeah, I'll just start there. Like, do you think like if like just like I guess just like the resolution to like everything from the climax and after is bad? Do you think that can like make a series like that can like completely ruin what you thought of a series beforehand?
No, I almost never think that's the case. And if it is the case, it's really more so in like the series I liked, but it's like I didn't like it, you know? Like that's more so the series where maybe the ending would affect it more so. 'Cause like, yeah, I mean, I can't really think of something where it just completely ruined it if I really liked it. 'Cause like, as a kid, one of my favorite series was, Teen Titans. And even though it was canceled, and I mean, I guess there's also some argument that the movie, like the Tokyo movie, is technically the resolution, kind of, sort of. But, I was very unsatisfied with like the ending of the actual show, and I never even thought of the movie as supposed to be the ending. So like, but even in spite of that, it was my favorite show growing up, and I was still obsessed with it nonetheless, and I still loved it. It was just like, man, it just the last episode of the show, Tara doesn't even get her memory back, and Beast Boy gets no resolution. And for the last episode, it even though Beast Boy is a Teen Titan, it shouldn't really just be about Beast Boy, right? Like why would you make us
right? Especially how much you like Robin, so I'm sure you would want stuff with him at the end.
Yeah, like he's the only Titan in my mind that you could do that type of the ending is only about him, but it's either it's only about Robin or it's about the entire team.
Right,
you
but
can't do
they
anything
didn't.
else.
It
At least in
doesn't
my
affect
mind.
your.
So yeah, it didn't affect it. Like I still loved the show. And another one as a kid again, because with cartoons you kind of do have to accept that things can just get canceled.
That shit just stop. And a lot of times I think as a kid, if it's something that is even less story based, you know what I mean? Like when you start talking about the real kind of shit that only kids like, you know what I mean?
Chum Chum.
Or my gym partners. Only a kid's gonna watch that shit, right? Only a kid's gonna watch fucking The Mighty Bee. And
oh my god, I love the things they're referencing.
Substantial out of it, but the kid's still gonna enjoy it, right? And if a kid finds out, oh yeah, this show's just you might not even notice that the show's canceled because Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network will still play it in their programming, right?
Yeah.
But the show has these 30 episodes and that's all you get, and you just think well, I'm just watching the show. You don't even notice that it's always the same episodes because there's no more, right? So a lot of times I think with kids media, kids just don't even fucking know.
Yeah, they don't know, or they they don't get into this mindset of just turning their back on it. Oh, this ending sucked. Fuck this show. I'm not watching this or talking about it ever again. No, they still love it.
Because if a kid sees the final episode of Teen Titans is bad, you see the final episode of Teen Titans is bad, and you're like,
I didn't think it was bad. It was just
but you were oh, this isn't what I want. And then there's a fucking little advert comes up and goes boop, and it's coming up next, Teen Titans, and you see the episode, and you're like, oh shit, you're not gonna turn it off because the previous episode you didn't like as much. You're just gonna sit there and watch the episode you do like. You know what I mean? So I completely get that, especially kids shows where it's just What was the other one you said you were gonna say? By the way, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Spectacular Spider-Man. Now I don't like it as much, but it's not because of the ending or anything. It's just I don't think it's the most entertaining. But as a kid, I obviously really liked Spectacular Spider-Man. I really loved it, and that's always been a one that I knew for a very long time just got canceled and didn't have a real ending.
Yeah,
and it was weird because essentially, Spider-Man takes out Green Goblin, finds out Green Goblin was actually Osborn the entire time, and it was just straight up never Harry. Osborn, Norman was framing Harry the entire time, which is crazy. That I think that's pretty crazy though. I still think that was a very good twist, and that fight was really good. And Peter ended up thinking he was dead, but then at the end we see him. He's alive and he flies off he's at an airport and he's gonna go be disguised and be oh, I got away with it. And it kind of ends there. And Peter doesn't get with Gwen like he was supposed to. Gwen ends up having to stay with Harry out of pity. Peter ends up with nobody. He broke it off with Liz to be with Gwen, and he was finally gonna get his stuff together. And then he got cucked. Norman got away, and it was well. Fuck. There's obviously supposed to be another season, but it just ends here, and it's very unsatisfactory. But I still thought it was a very great show, and I was still thinking everything was really cool and all that. But it just made me want more. But I never held it against the show. It just wasn't. It's not a mindset that I default to. I don't like to do that. I try not to.
That's fair enough.
And I almost feel it's the least I could do if I enjoyed a bunch of the show. I'm not gonna just start shitting.
Right, there was something there that you enjoyed, and it feels almost disingenuous to just cast all of that away because 1/50th of it, right? Or maybe a 25th of it, right? If it's the last 2 episodes out of a 50 episode show, right? It's oh well, the last 50th I didn't like, and I think the argument that people who will say that about the ending will make to play devil's advocate is just that, oh, well, the ending is like the most important part of the story, right? Like everything in your story is building up to your ending. So if your ending isn't good, then how can your story be good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that, like, I feel like that's one of those things that are so obviously untrue. And you're so, like, some people who say that are just so full of themselves, to be honest. Like, ending is a very important part. Like, at least top 3 important parts of the story, I guess.
Yeah, up there with beginning and middle.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not everything. Like, it's literally not everything.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think, on top of that, it's like, it's very hard, I think, because I think for me at least, it does somewhat depend on the series, right? It's much easier for me to say, Scrubs is one of my favorite sitcoms. Just ignore season 9. Because the kind of story Scrubs is, and specifically with the way Scrubs ends, or the way season 8 ends, where it is an ending to this series, and then it came back later on this different network with like these different main characters. It's very easy to just like ignore that last season of the show, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or it'd be very easy with something like The Simpsons, right? To bring this up again, I think it's a great example. Is okay. What people say, 8, 9 seasons of The Simpsons are good. It's very easy then to just watch those seasons and literally ignore the other like 20 whatever seasons, right? Even though in theory, if you are a diehard whatever after season 8 episode 13 or whatever the fuck, Simpsons gets bad, right? People will still ignore, like, people for some reason with this with The Simpsons, I feel like they almost act like those 8 seasons, like those, everyone will say, oh well, obviously, I don't watch The Simpsons now, but you know what I mean? Like the first 8 seasons are good, so people still call The Simpsons a good show, where they always like put that disclaimer, but it's like more than half of it's people don't like. But it's that, the kind of story it is and the kind of show it is very easy to ignore other parts, right? Because The Simpsons didn't leave lingering questions, right? It wasn't like season 8 episode 14 is when it starts getting bad, and season 8 episode 13 leaves you with the cliffhanger of, did Marge actually kill Bart? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing crazy like that going on. You know what I mean? So it's very easy for people to watch what they like and just like literally ignore what they don't in a series like that, where it is that episodic. And realistically, it doesn't matter if you choose not to watch. Even if I skip like a certain episode of The Simpsons, right? It's actually not going to affect me. You know what I mean? Like, it won't affect my enjoyment of other episodes. Yeah. It won't affect my reading of other episodes, because that's just how the show is built. So in those, I think it's very easy to just say, don't let the bad ending or the point after you decide it gets bad, or even you don't like it, like, ruin it for you. But I do think it is much harder for things that are much more maybe story based, or based on like the viewer needing the resolution to things. Because like, for example, I do hate that we always bring it up, but I think it is just so important, and it is such a good example because so many people have, when you're talking about anime, right, it makes sense to talk about the most popular anime. Now, it does help that one of the most popular anime is Nun's favorite manga and my like second favorite, so we bring it up a lot, but Naruto, right? Where like, okay, yes.
Bingo.
I can understand how people who, like, Naruto is a series where a lot of it is building up to these payoffs, right? A lot of what Naruto is building up these questions, building up characters, building up these moments and these motivations for these payoffs, right? Which is honestly, it's a part of most stories, right? It's a part of storytelling, and it's a part of having, like, a story that is going week to week that is actually trying to be a story that's continuous, right? Not just, like, something that's episodic, right? And so because of that, I think it is a lot harder for people to say, oh, yeah, well, I liked all this stuff in Naruto that was setting up the ending, but then when I got to the ending, it was hard to, like, get into it, right? And because of that, it's hard to say that I liked the early stuff because I didn't like what it was all setting up for. And I get that, but I think that the difference I would say is, I think if you like a lot of the setup in a story and you don't like the ending, I think that's the tell that you should look at it again, right? Because I would be willing to bet most people who genuinely like all of Naruto up to the Ninja War would like the Ninja War if they gave it another chance, especially if they just read it instead of watched it, because it's the same shit. It's the same story. The shit that you like at the beginning is in the end. It's all fucking there. Every part of it. If you want to act like there's no like fucking, oh, but the tactics aren't there. They fucking are. Naruto literally does the exact same shit he does in chapter 1 in the final battle. Like, it's literally the exact same series. I think this fucking is especially time. So I just don't understand how someone can say like, well, the ending ruined it for me. By doing what everything else did? That means you just didn't like it.
It's especially true for people who like the pain arc and think it's the peak of Naruto. Like if you like that, then you should like the war. Like it's one thing for the people like, oh, part 1's better than 2. But like especially people who like pain, the war is literally just expanding upon that and following up on that.
They were written a year apart, roughly. Like, literally, he was writing the war a year after he wrote Pain Arc. Do you think he had mental damage in that time? No. He didn't have time to change as a person. He was writing the story the whole time. No, I don't know. It just, like, it bothers me when like, people say that, because it's like, okay, I don't understand how, like, with a story like that, or, like, you know, I'm sure One Piece will be the same way. I think Dragon Ball's the same fucking way. How can you say you like the Cell and the Saiyan arc, and then be like, oh, but Buu arc just didn't do it for me? It's the same fucking story. It's told the exact same way by the same person who likes to tell the story the same way. It's the same fucking thing.
I mean, with Dragon Ball, I think it's like people, the mindset of Dragon Ball discussion is really off base with like the actual story that's being presented, because people just don't respect Dragon Ball as an actual story.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they like Dragon Ball and they like things about it, but it's just like, it's hard to explain like the mindset I think people have about
a lot of people I think who are I think one way to phrase it maybe would be that I think a lot of people who are in the Dragon Ball community, or people who choose okay, I think a lot of the people who would say Dragon Ball is one of their favorites are people who are very much Dragon Ball. They like Dragon Ball enough where they're talking about it all the time. It's like a part of, like, I guess, their persona or their personality. They only care about the fights.
Yeah, it is the fights. Yeah.
And so because of that, they just kind of ignore everything else, and it leads to a lot of disrespect to the series.
Yeah, and since they only care about the fights, that's why Gohan is viewed the way he is.
Right, because Gohan has the best fight in the series.
Yeah, and that's why like people don't understand what Goten and Trunks' character is supposed to be, and like why Goku ended up choosing Oob as it. Well, I mean, people don't complain about the Oob thing as much, but it's like,
but yeah, they complain about
it's still like people don't understand why that happens.
What are Gotenks there for? But you know, I do think that like in a lot of those cases, it's like it's the same fucking story. It's written by the same guy. A lot of it's the same. Now, yes, a story does change over a very long time, right? Naruto changes a lot from the beginning to the end. But it's still the same story written by the same guy using a lot of the same things. Like a lot of the same techniques, you know, a lot of the same storytelling ideas and tropes and character moments and things like that are in there the whole time. The things that Naruto does that are poggers at the beginning, he's still doing, and they're still poggers at the end. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I think that's just like, in that instance, I just don't get it. You know, one thing I do actually think the ending ruins, and I think that I think you can use this to argue that maybe sometimes the ending can ruin things. I think an ending can ruin a joke. I think a bad punchline ruins a joke.
Oh.
Okay. And because of that, like, it's hard because, like, I do think, like, for example, right? If maybe you made a movie where, or a episode of a show or something, right? Where the entire thing was build up for a joke. Right, was literally build up for a punchline, and the punchline is like dog shit, or like doesn't make sense. Yeah, the ending ruins it because the entire purpose of the whole thing is set up for this one. But I would almost argue the difference is that is right. Like a joke, the idea of it almost is that the entire time you're telling the joke is set up for the punchline, right? So every single thing in theory in that joke should be set up for the end of that joke. So then, if the end of that joke flounders, of course their joke is going to, because nothing there has value outside of setting up the one thing, right? And I think obviously, you know, that's very different with a lot of sitcoms where an individual episode does not give a fuck what's going to happen 7 seasons later, you know? And then obviously I think, you know, with Naruto, like, or you know, other series like that, like with Teen Titans or Spectacular Spider-Man, right? The ending not being there, yes, there were things setting it up, and the fact that there was a setup that doesn't have payoff sucks. But it's not like that happening actually stops you from enjoying the rest of the episodes that were super good, that had moments that ended and ideas that were finished, right?
Mm-hmm. Even just recently, I read Fire Punch, and I don't really think the ending was like super great or anything, and I'm not like a fan of it. But I still like it more so because it's like I still think it had like interesting concepts and interesting ideas and like moments that I could think of and be like, yeah, that was pretty cool, and like I kind of like the approach, but like the ending doesn't really do it for me. And I don't really like super feel fulfilled by it. Like it kind of just ended and it was like, okay. Like, I mean, I didn't think the ending was bad or anything. It was just like, it was just all right. Like, yeah, there's just so many other ways to still enjoy something.
Yeah. Do you have any more you want to say about the topic?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess I did want to say one thing like that I did think of while you were talking that the ending did genuinely ruin it, which was Bokuben.
Oh my fucking god! How did we not talk about Bokuben?
Yeah, I forgot about it. I just don't think about it anymore.
Yeah, you're a genius. I honestly have not thought about that series outside of porn in years. Since like it ended, I like literally haven't thought about it. But I think that's a good example.
Yeah, it's just like, oh my, like it's so hard to look at it the same way. Like I can't even, like, even though I liked it and I liked the characters, I just stopped caring about like everything after that happened. And this is the one rare exception for me where the ending and like what the ending was doing did just ruin the entire thing.
Well, I forgot about Bokuben because someone asked us a while ago, and I remember trying to think of something, and Bokuben is the answer. Someone was trying to like ask me like, do you think there's a series that actually kind of betrayed its theme, like its core message? And you know what? I think Bokuben did. I think Bokuben like clearly did. I don't think there's much debate for that. Hold on, I'm not hearing anything through my headphones, so let me make sure things are working. Sorry, you gotta give me a second.
All right.
Oh no, I can hear you. Okay, never mind.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think with Bokuben, and I can even explain how, if people want it, how I think, it betrays its theme, which is I think a large part of Bokuben is that you have characters who are, who there's like the easy road and the hard road, right? And it's done through school, but for a lot of them, they have the easy road, which is continue with what they're successful in, right? Continue being, the math person or the literature person, but they both want to do something different. And you get these other characters who are almost pigeonholed into something because that's what's easy and that's what people expect of them, and they want to do something different. And sure, someone could say that we're doing this to Bokuben right now, but I would argue it's different because I think, I truly believe that I think instead of leading the series towards a conclusion where your character has to make that choice and has to decide, who are they going to, like who are they going to end up with? Who are they going to pick? And actually making the character make that hard choice that a lot of that series is about, is doing something hard. It's like, oh, we're just going to put, not even in the same, like canon. So he has to find a way to make it work with all these girls. Something like what Kanajo is doing. It literally is just like, we're going to split up the story into 5 different endings and you can just kind of pick the ending you like. And the problem with that is, I think that it's not just that like, oh, the series went for a conclusion that I didn't like, and that's the problem. It's that the series both opted into and out of any possible conclusion it could have, and I think by that it avoided having to make any kind of actual comment or statement with it, because ultimately, right? Like I guess. You could even, if you wanted to like dissect the harem genre further, right? You could argue that the harem genre at its core is about what love is, right? And so by having your main character in a harem pick the girl he's going to end up with, you essentially have your author making a statement about love, right? They're making a statement about, what kind of love is correct, or what kind of love should this character pick, something like that, right? And that's kind of like a core pick. I don't think it's actually doing something innovative and trying to like say something with it. I truly believe it is just avoiding having to make that choice. And I just think that because there's no thematic reasoning that I can find or that the story gives in universe, I guess, for why he would choose all the girls in different timelines other than that's what the story did. You know?
Yeah, like even the ending of the story tries to like be like, oh, there's all these possible routes because there's like endless possibilities of what their futures can be, but it's just like I don't like even just for Naruki, yeah, it doesn't, there's not something in his character that like just makes sense why he could just be with anyone and just like, you know, just fall into the lap of whichever girl he's around, you know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually make the girls have a resolution for like why they would cease, like him having to let them down and like turn them down and stand up for them.
Outside of the first, outside of like
first one.
The first one that happens, outside of the first one that happens, where it does feel like there's legitimate, like the first one feels real, and then all the other ones are just like, oh yeah, now he's kind of in a point where he only ever really interacts with one of the girls, so he didn't really have to make a choice, or even like he didn't even have to like, you know, talk to the other girls and, you know, like deal with the other girls' emotions or things. You know, it was just like, oh yeah, well he kind of only talks to this girl, so it kind of just made sense. Outside of the one where it was good and like worked in with the themes of the story and like made sense. It was like, yes, this is literally what the story is building to. And then you have 4 other ones after the good one where it's just like, okay, you know what, we're just gonna fucking. And the good one's not even my favorite girl. She's like 3rd or 4th, but it's that like it actually tied into the themes of the series. It made sense. And the other ones literally just felt like, oh, he met this girl sometime after the series ended. And he wasn't with the one girl, so he just kind of ended up with all of them eventually. It's like, what is this? What? Hello? This isn't okay. Ah, fuck Bokuben. God.
Yeah,
pissing me off.
I do definitely think there's some endings where people can have that, like, yeah, this ruins it for me. But I just think it's generally fake if people have that with like so many different things and like every bad ending equals a bad story or a bad thing all along or that it's mostly bad. Like it's definitely fake when it happens that much to you. I just don't even I can't really put myself in the mindset for that to be the case for me.
Yeah, well, and I think the difference is also, right, like you know, to be fair to us, right, ultimately the one series that we can name where we think the ending truly did ruin it for us is like the one instance that both of us could think of out of all the series. And like, yes, I forgot this series, but that's because I was so emotionally upset by it because of how much I liked it. It's very hard for us to think of series where it's like, oh yeah, the ending. I mean, like, I literally couldn't even think of this series when someone asked me, like, months ago of, like, do you know any series that, like, betrayed their, like, core theme, right? And because it's, like, that doesn't happen very often, right? A lot of times a series is, like, it's same thing through to the end. And it's very rare for, I think, an ending to be so bad in the series and so. And it definitely isn't every show. Every shonen or manga doesn't do that well either.
I mean, I guess the final thing is like, yeah, I almost do feel like when something is shorter as a shonen or whatever, leaves less room for people to forget and less room for them to fucking think of all their little theories and things they want to happen and get unsatisfied with it. I do think to some degree it was good for Chainsaw Man since his show is so compact and has like such fast pacing and stuff. But yeah.
I watched 2 episodes of One Piece. So I thought 2 was enough. Do you want to watch up to 3 for next week? Because I didn't want to do 2 episodes because we literally hadn't talked about it on the episode. So I thought we'd watch episode 1 this week. And then we'll say that we'll catch up to 3 by next week. Because I also found out, and I had time to like watch episode 1, and then I watched like half of a YouTube video before we started recording. So.
Yep, no need for that weird voice in the beginning.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I agree.
So not current. I mean, yeah, I've read a lot of the manga. I am super not current on it, so I have no idea what's going on. It was good. There were a lot of things I liked.
I would agree. The acting's really good.
I mean, I like Anya a lot. I think her voice is fine. I think she's cute. I think her facial expressions this episode were really good. And one thing I thought it did great was it would give her a lot of great facial expressions that were very like soft for a very short episode. Like they were constantly saying like the really good facial expressions, but like she had it, and then like I swear to God, all of but like she was like turning the inside of her head to like look like it, and then it would like be really good, right? But like it definitely is a thing where.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was good. I didn't think it was anything. It was to me it was like the first episode of an anime manga I've seen ever. It's usually super positive, definitely.
People are being fake already, kind of, sort of, with
How
like
much they like it
before they've experienced it at all. You're just kind of fucking following the thing.
My biggest thing with Spy Family is that like I know I'm going to love it when it reaches a certain story point that the series is building towards, right? Like the series has like it's you know, which you see in this episode, that like core idea, right, of like Lloyd, you know, kind of learning to want to be around other people and growing this bond with his family, right? And like I know that like that will have like I don't know what it'll be, and I'm not gonna try to guess what it'll be because it'll be a cringer, but it will have that will lead into a goated moment at some point in the series. It just like it has to, right? Like it's the entire point of the series, pretty much, you know. And so because of that, I'm personally like legitimately just waiting for that to happen. And that's true with where I was in the manga, and it'll be true with a lot of what I say about the anime, where I think there's a lot of great ideas in it. I think that there's a lot of stuff that's super fun. I think it's funny. I think Anya's cute. I think Yor's super hot. But you know, ultimately, I think the biggest thing that the series is I guess just missing for me is that moment where I think it really starts to put its cards on the table outside of just being like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? I'm waiting for it to do something maybe I guess a little bit more serious with like that core idea.
Now it's just being cute and funny.
Yeah, and like it has sweet moments, and don't get me wrong, the sweet moments are good, but the sweet moments I think haven't been like, you know, like nothing in the series has made me like emotional, and not that like a series has to, but for me to say that like, oh, I love Spy Family, I am waiting for that moment, and I think that that's something that people feel with this series very early on. Is it's so obvious what it's doing, and it's so clear, and it's well done, and it's good that people are like they love it because they know what it's going to be. But I have never seen the series, like I haven't seen the series get there yet, so it's hard for me to buy in because I want to see it get there before I'm ready to like hop all aboard the Spy Family train. Outside of just saying I think it's like good and like it's fun and it's a great read and I recommend it, I wouldn't say that like I think it's like the best shit of the year or anything, because like I know I've definitely read through like what the anime is gonna cover, and it's not gonna get to like goat shit. You know what I mean?
I mean, at least based on this this first episode, I thought Lloyd was good. I really liked, even though he kind of like says something about Anya of like, oh, does it turn out she's dumb after all or whatever? I like how he clearly has some stuff that's dumb about him that he just doesn't notice. Especially when, I mean, later on he meets Yor, but I don't want to, since that's episode 2. Yeah, I liked it. I don't mind watching it. It's finally a show that's like, you know, a decent Weeb Club patron pick. So, I mean, I don't really mind it. Personally, I wanted to watch Shikimori, but it's cool. Watching Spy X Family I might eventually make me pick up the manga again. I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty good.
Mm. Yeah, I liked it. I did think the animation and that there was one moment in the episode that I think had like sick animation where like it was like when he fought the people in his home. I thought that shit was like buttery smooth and pog as fuck. But
epic.
Yeah. But
so whatchamacallit? Weekly roundup.
Yes. So,
well, I guess I go first.
Yes.
Unless you want to go first.
Do you have something ready? Because that's normally if I go first.
Yeah, I do have something ready. So I mean, I'm going to talk about something a little different. I watched top 8 of Genesis for Ultimate.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought you were going to say top 8 for... Well, first I thought it was going to be something really wild. Then I heard you start top 8 for Genesis. And I thought it was going to be Melee. And I thought I was going to get my moment to say I didn't watch it because Mango got 9th. And I turned it off. But... but... Okay. How's Ultimate?
So... I watched it. Unfortunately, I didn't watch it live because I was I was not home. I was not in town or anything like that. But I watched it after the fact, and even after the fact, I actually enjoyed it, which was like really fucking surprising because not only do I, you know, like sometimes I'll be like kind of into some matches and not like, but I won't be like crazy into it because like I don't really like Ultimate's like general storyline with its players most of the time, and I also just don't like if something was streamed, normally just watching it after the fact like takes away from it significantly.
Right, it's hard to because then you end up skipping through the VOD. It's like at that point it's like I always just end up watching highlights. You know what I mean? Like if I don't watch it live instead of like actually watching, like I do that with sports, like, you know, if I miss like a football game I want to watch or a basketball game, it's like, okay, well, I'll just watch the highlights instead of like watching the full thing because it kind of just sucks sometimes going back.
And what I did was like, I pulled up a playlist of the top 8. I glazed my eyes and like closed them so I can barely see to like pick the thing, just so I didn't like end up seeing like what the grand finals was or what the winners quarters and things like that was. So I didn't know what happened in the top 8, thankfully. But one tidbit I did know from Twitter was nice. That Tweak lost, which he plays Diddy Kong, and I love Diddy Kong, so it's like I want to see him succeed, and I like Diddy Kong. I support anyone who plays Diddy Kong, so it's like fuck, he's not. I already knew he lost. He got upset. I don't even know what place he got. He must have gotten like fairly low, I think, from what I can tell, which was unfortunate. But I watched the top 8, and I actually enjoyed it, and I thought everyone was like. Well, most people were playing like really, really well. And it had me rooting for people that I didn't think I would root for and that I wouldn't be like super into. Like, Gluttony is a French Wario player.
Disgusting!
Yeah, disgusting. And there was people in the venue waving the French flag. And I was like, at first, like when I first tuned into like one of his matches, I was like, get this Frenchman out of here. Cause like he was winning some stuff and I wasn't behind him. And I was like, somebody get this guy. And then eventually like I was watching him and it was like, he's kind of going off. Like he's playing really, really well. And like he won me over to like rooting for him. Because it was just like I thought his play was really great.
So you're telling me he pulled a Jackie Robinson and his play was so good you ended up cheering.
Yeah,
it turned off your racism turned off because he was so good.
Yeah, like because like the thing is with Wario right now, right, is he got nerfed. The I don't know if it was the last patch or the patch before that, but he got some nerfs and. his waft confirms and his like general combo game isn't as good anymore. And so I know Gluttony has been struggling for a while to actually like perform, and beforehand he was like more so up there than he was for a while. But in this tournament he was comboing with Wario really, really well. And a thing that people have been saying that he's been doing with his waft instead of trying to go for like a hard confirm is he like actually just tries to read what people are doing and tries to like, you know, catch an air dodge or catch like this weird getup or like read the opponent,
right? Try to catch him with the waft instead of
confirm.
needing confirmed. If he can hit one where, you know, he catches them, but he can't, like, he has to read it, so there's a chance. But it's like if he hits that, then it's, I assume, a kill most of the time. Like when he's going for it, it's a kill.
Mm-hmm. And like seeing his refined, better Wario than before made me kind of like the nerfs, to be honest, because it's like I think the confirms were like a little too much, and I kind of think for moves like that it's kind of more fair for like a move that has such kill power to be like that, where you're not as guaranteed to get that. And I definitely think that was the intention behind the move of Waft.
Right. Well, it makes his, I almost feel like, right, like it makes his kit around the waft as opposed to, like, for example, right, if every single down tilt Wario could turn it into a waft, right, his kit is now revolving around down tilt instead of waft, because down tilt is what leads into the kill. But if the big move, he can't confirm into it, it means that he has to, his kit revolves around the actual big move as opposed to revolving around the small move that leads into the big move, which I think makes it way more interesting.
Yeah, like, and I genuinely think his combo game has gotten like, it looks better than before, because his combo strings are just longer because they need to be longer to do more damage, and beforehand they were a little shorter to get the waft. And I just liked watching him play, and like, he had to really be on it to keep Wario in the game and not like, and I didn't really think most of his waft kills were ever like bullshit or whatever, you know? Yeah. Especially because now the play, instead of holding on to waft as long as possible, because beforehand what he would typically do is he would fight, yeah. And then he would use the waft on the last stock for like, to get the final kill. Mm-hmm. And now he tends to use like a half waft, which isn't as powerful, but if you use a half waft, you'll usually get another waft to use later in the game. So on average now he gets like 2, maybe 3 wafts to use instead of just the 1 full charge. And I just think it's a lot better to watch. And it's cool to see like him having to get a little more damage before he can pull off the waft. Mm-hmm. And just like seeing him kind of read some people like a fiddle sometimes was really good. And like, he got really far. Like he literally got into grand finals. He didn't win, but he got really far. Leo. But whatchamacallit, Gluttony did beat Spargo, which I don't know if you know, but Spargo's like easily the second best right now. And he's been on the come up, and he's like the person people are saying like, oh, he's the person who basically everyone, even including Leo, thinks that Spargo will be the best at some point.
Oh, it's
just
like,
a matter of when.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if. It's like, okay, this guy's fucking cracked. Once he like gets everything together, he will be there. So it's just like almost waiting for him to get there.
Yeah, he's like literally 15, and he already is just the second best. He's taken games from Leo. He's won some tournaments. Leo also used to be in this position. Like, it's kind of just an expected Smash thing, at least for like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure, right? When you have players that are that young, right? You just will get a 15-year-old who just mentally can't actually like compete at like a super high level, right? Because they don't have the, you know, just the mental like acuity to, right? So it's almost like at that point it just is like a mental thing where you do just have to get a little bit older and get a little bit more experience with, you know, competition, and then you're fine, right? So
and like even like Tweak is saying like how in a lot of ways Spargo just already has these things that took him a long time to have, like the calmness, the patience, like Tweak was talking about how when he was younger he would like, you know, play more aggressively, and it did work for him really well, but there's only that can only go so far. But Spargo already has all these things, and he's already like fucking up everyone, and is only like really losing to Leo. Typically, this tournament was an exception. He did get out at he got out at third because of Gluttony, but yeah, Gluttony was fucking playing really fucking well. I was also really into a player called Myron's matches. He's a player a lot of people don't like, and like an outside looking in, someone might think it's like whack that I like root for him, and like I usually back him when he's playing, even though he's an Olimar player and Olimar's a zoner. And I usually hate zoners, but like I think people underrate his play and like kind of
Olimar fun.
They assume too much of what, like they I feel like they go in thinking like, oh, it's Olimar's, I'm not gonna respect anything he's doing, and I'm gonna like fucking say like, oh, he's just camping and all that. But like Myron is like, as an Olimar player, he's an aggressive player most of the time, and he actually knows what he's doing with the character. And I thought a lot of his matches were good. He got really far. I like actually like audibly pogged and like audibly like said things that was like fuck or like or like was like making noises and stuff, and I haven't done that with Smash in a very long time, where like I'm into it enough to like verbally say something because of it. And that was happening with some of his matches, and I was like rooting for him, and I thought he was doing really well. He beat Mars, which Mars is a really like he's one of the top players, top 10 easily. He parried one of Mars's back airs and forward smashed him, and that parry was like really risky because like if he missed it there, he was in a really bad position if he missed that. And like just everything about what he was doing was really on point. At first Mars like kind of had him on the ropes a little bit, but he like turned it around. There was just like a lot of little things that I saw him doing too, of like, do you know how like when Olimar up Bs and he can like fly for a little bit, but if he uses one of his attacks while in that up B, he'll go into free fall? I think Myron generally uses that really well, but in this one instance, I thought he was going off with it on Mars. It's just like, it was like, I don't know, like I was just appreciating so many things while I was watching that I normally just like, this fucking game, I'm not into this.
Like you were finally able to like watch and like appreciate what was actually happening in the game instead of almost like just not liking it because whatever, it's like Ultimate.
Yeah. And I even rooted for a Rob player. I don't really hate on Rob like other people, but I'm also like, I don't really care about Rob. But just because of how well he was playing, I was like, okay, I want you to win, go for it. Like, you know, and maybe it was because this one instance was secretly because that guy, he had a Morbius tag, like he set his name in the game as Morbius. So like this,
so the Morbius mania took you over?
Subconsciously made me like, oh man, I gotta back this guy. Unfortunately, he ended up losing.
No.
Yeah, like he didn't. I wanted him to go a little further because he lost to Spargo, even though he was doing really well. He just kind of flubbed the last game really, and just kind of, but like he was playing really well, and like he got this early gimp on Spargo with his side B. Generally he was playing pretty aggressively. I mean, Rob usually plays aggressively. I just think he's like kind of fucking a little bit lame anyway. But yeah, I really liked the top 8. I thought it was fun. By the end, like the little bit of the end wasn't as good, which kind of fitting for this topic. But and it was sad that like for the most, like for all of it, I avoided knowing things I didn't want to know. But so with the with the VODs on YouTube, I feel like seeing the time, like how long the match was and how long that specific video is, it can spoil the fuck out of it, and you know what has to happen for it to be this time.
Right, because if there's like 2 minutes left and you're in game 3, you're like, okay, well it just ends here. Like he doesn't, you know.
It's also like, just that like if a match is like 10 minutes, right? If a VOD's like 10 minutes, if the person who wins game 1 probably won the whole set, like they probably won the whole thing. Like, there's no way they didn't. It can't be that short. So, in the Grands match, I closed my eyes and I paused without looking at the time because I didn't want to know how long it was. And I had to use the bathroom, so I went to use the bathroom. And then I came back and I forgot to not look at how long it was. And I saw, I was able to ascertain that Leia would have had to win. Like,
and with Grands, it's easy because if, that one person has a reset. So if this person even makes it close, it's going to be a lot longer. Yeah. But if it's if it's like the length of a normal set, then the person from winners had to have won.
Exactly.
Losers can't win that fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So it was like, oh damn, I know. I know what happens now. It's Leo. He was probably gonna win, but it's like I still took away that, so I knew the entire time. But still super cool that Gluttony got that far. Probably never gonna root for that man ever again, but I just like display that much.
That was his one chance.
Yeah, that was his one chance. He blew it. Fuck that guy. No, I'm just kidding.
Shut up, Raymond.
Sad.
Screaming. Ray's just started being a little screamy boy. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Like he's decided that like at 10, if I'm playing games, because it's not that he's hungry, right? Because he has food, he has water, he has litter, he has everything he needs. But he decides at a certain point every night, he's just going to start screaming. And he's going to come over and see me, and if I don't devote 100% of my attention to him, he starts screaming. And then he'll go into my bedroom if I still don't pay enough attention to him, and he'll just start screaming from my bedroom, and he'll give like 4 or 5 loud as fuck meows from my bedroom, going meow, 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 meow. And I'm like, what the fuck? Is he dying? And he just like walks over around the corner from my bedroom to my living room and just looks at me and then comes over and like wants me to pet him. So he just needs to shut up.
Trying to think if there's any other player I wanted to specifically mention, but so Rob Blair, Myron, Lenny, it's probably about it. Yeah, I enjoyed the tournament. I'll probably continue to try to watch some other Ultimate tournaments to see if I can be into it. Hopefully Tweak's there in the top 8 next time, because he's the main person I root for.
He's the main antagonist of Ultimate for you?
No, he's not the main antagonist.
Or the main character of Ultimate for you.
Yeah. I mean, I know he's not actually the main character. I'm not fucking coping. I know he's not going to be top 1 player, even though he's top 5, top 10, but he's not going to reach top 1. Yeah, he's the main person I follow right now, so yeah. What's your thing that you were going to mention?
For the weekly roundup?
Mm-hmm.
I've been rereading Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I'm talking about it now is because I just finished... how much? Well, I don't know how much Kingdom you've read, but... Because I don't think you've touched it since you stopped reading it at one point, right?
Okay. Yeah, since I stopped.
So I just finished the arc that I got current on. So, and I'll give an idea of how close that is to current Kingdom. It's the most recent complete major arc. So the manga's currently at 715. I'm at 686. At the very end of the arc, like right there. So I mean, I'm close to current, right? I'm 30 chapters, so like, a little over half a year off of current now. And yeah, I mean, Kingdom is just so fucking good. And like, I've been really enjoying my reread. And it fully has cemented just for me, just that like, look, every 3 to 4 to 5 years, if you're reading something weekly, if you want to pretend like you still have a very good grasp of the series, you owe it to yourself to reread it or re-experience it. And I actually fully mean that, because it's not about the major stuff. I know you remember the major stuff, but like there's always going to be small, minute things that you just forget, right? And it literally is something like as small as like some of that Kimetsu shit was, where it's not actually minor, it's super major, but it's like it's said once in one chapter. And especially when you're weekly reading, like some of those small panels in a chapter just like seem insignificant, so you don't commit your memory to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially with like series that don't like when it comes to what a character's thinking in their head, if they tend to not like super explain that or super directly show that one miss of like an early explanation
and
of something.
I'm not going to say I've gotten a lot out of Kingdom rereading it. A lot of it just has been what I kind of wanted, which is okay. So the two main reasons I was rereading is one, it had been a while, and I love the series, so I kind of wanted a refresher on some of the GOAT moments, I guess. The second was I wanted to reread the Battle of Shukai Plains because that was the arc I got current on, which was the most recent complete arc, and it felt like a reread was a good way because I was like current on the arc for probably like a year or two before it like fully finished. You know what I mean? Maybe a year. I don't know how long I was current, but there was a period where I was current before it fully finished, right? So it was nice to get a refresher of the while I read current. You know what I mean? And then the other thing was some of the current stuff I wasn't super big on and didn't know some of the characters because especially when there's a bunch of character introductions at the start of an arc, Cough Cough Wano. Cough Cough literally the exact same thing I'm feeling with Kingdom. It's just like I just don't know all these people, so I'll just fucking reread the whole series, get a good refresher on it, and then I'm behind on Kingdom, so I just stopped reading it. Same with like One Piece, I'm behind on One Piece, so I just stopped reading it, and I'll just reread it and get current when I do. And I've been really enjoying my Kingdom reread. But what I was gonna say, I said I was gonna get back to earlier, was like it's just crazy how much different the experience is because like there was a fight that I finished. It's the best fight in the series that like. I swear to God, I thought was like way longer than it was by like 4 times the amount, I think. I actually thought it was like 2 volumes long and it was like a volume, half a volume. Just because like in my brain, like I was reading it for so much longer, right? Because it was weekly for like 2 months, it felt like, you know what I mean? And like it wasn't actually that long, but it felt like that long when I was reading it as it was coming out. And so it was really interesting going back and rereading and being like, wow, that was... And they're not less good. Do not get me wrong. It was not less good than I thought it was. It was still just as good as it fucking I always, you know what I mean? But it was just more so I was like, wow, that was a little bit shorter than I thought. And there's just like some other stuff with, like minor. Like there were just things where it was like, going through it, I was like, oh, that's neat or that's still fucking pog. And I mean, there were moments where knowing what was coming, seeing the setup for something and immediately knowing, oh, this leads to this pog moment. Pog moment still came. I still pogged. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I've been very much enjoying my Kingdom reread. And I am glad I finished the arc I was on because it's so good. Like the Battle of Shukai Plains is actually just such a fucking great arc. It like the thing is it doesn't have like every character that like is important to the like to Kin. And it's in Zhao, so it doesn't even have every Zhao character that's important have like their stuff finished or like even is in it. But it's like a lot of the major Zhao players are there. A lot of the major Kin players are there. It's like, all right, just fucking throw me into this shit. Let me fucking... And it's just so pog. It's just like, oh my God. It's just like the perfect almost like Kingdom War arc. And I'm very excited to see where the series goes from here. But yeah, it's good. Like it's just so good, and there's so much small stuff in the series that like, just I always like just fucking makes me pog. There's the big moments are so good when Shin gives his fucking silly little speeches. I fucking pog because he's so cool. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Kingdom's like really fucking good, and it's like not a surprise. I love this series. You know what I mean? I mean, it's been in my like top, 3 manga the entire time the Weeb Club has been a thing. You know what I mean? I don't hide that I love Kingdom, and so yeah, it's not a surprise I super enjoy rereading it. But it's like also the only thing I finished. I mean, the thing is, I'm hopefully next week what I'll talk about will be something I finished, and it will be me pogging about something different, and I think I might have more interesting things to say. But right now, I'm not there yet, so I can't talk about it. But that's it for me on Kingdom. Just look, I like it. I don't want to say too much, and I can't say too much because Nun's here and hasn't read it. But please go read Kingdom. Nun, please fucking read Kingdom. Look, if you want to be a hero, okay, just read through the Battle of Shukai Plains or the Western Zhao Invasion arc. Stop at the end of that arc, right? When you get to the thing that it's not even a spoiler to say because it's just like a fundamental part of how the fucking war arcs work. Just stop after the ceremony. Just stop after the award ceremony that happens. There's like we got to go back and get the award ceremony, and Shin gets like his like rank up that happens in the ceremony because he killed important people, so he gets recognized. That happens in like every major arc or war. Really, not every major arc, because not every arc is a war, but in every major war. And just stop it there, and it's like, yeah, you've seen the fucking like the pog shit that like you can pause there and like actually just maybe put a pause on it and wait till the series is done, but like just please read through there. Like holy, it's so crazy good. It blows my mind. So yeah, Kingdom Pog. What are you talking about next week, Nun?
So I mean, I really don't know what I'm going to talk about next. It could be Chainsaw Man. I might not end. I might end up not finishing it though. So I don't really know. Maybe I'll finally get around to finishing the Nolan trilogy. I'll watch Batman. Whatchamacallit? The Dark Knight Rising. I mean,
Dark Knight Rises. Pog. We love Tom Hardy Bane.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a specific plan of something that I think I'll finish soon, so I'm not entirely sure. I could end up talking about Assassin's Creed 2 since I've already finished it.
Ooh, sheesh! I love Ezio. What a fucking king.
That's if I don't finish anything next week.
Right, because I assume you would want to finish the rest of the Ezio games before.
I mean, see, the thing is though, I don't have I don't have a specific plan on when I'm gonna play the rest of those, so I don't know when I would even talk about it. Like I'm like literally what I'm doing for Assassin's Creed is I'm just like I have some Assassin's Creed games to play when I'm in the mood for that. They're just sitting there waiting for me, but I'm not going through them one by one.
You've played the best Ezio games, so just go to 4.
Sad.
I don't actually mean that because my favorite Ezio moment is literally his final moment in his trilogy. Is like actually my favorite Ezio moment, and then it's a bunch of moments in 2. So it is worth playing them all, but yeah. Pog. I will. Okay. A lot of times I sit here, and the what are we gonna talk about next week, and I give you some grand idea for something I'm doing in my life, and almost every time I end up doing something different with my time. I feel safe to say this because this is like all I've done in the last like 2 weeks. I am absolutely going to talk about Heavensward, the first Final Fantasy XIV expansion next week because I am almost done with it. The minute we are done recording this, I am going to go play more, and I have been playing Final Fantasy this entire recording.
Yeah, I heard the clicking.
Yeah, I've been playing PvP though, so it's like I haven't been doing any story. I've just been like doing PvP, trying to grind the Garo event gear. Yeah. So it will definitely be Heavensward, because that's just what I'm going to talk about. It's Pog, and I'm going to finish it. So
epic.
Poggers. I have an MMO addiction. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see y'all next time.